sound speeds. And this is going to be the first of probably a few videos I'm going to do with regards to my relationship with certain manufacturers and or companies. I find it very important for me to be open, honest, and very transparent with regards to what I do here on this channel. And my relationship with these companies is no different. Now, some of these companies may not want me to say what I'm going to say, but I do want to be very clear about my relationships with them because I have been accused in the past of showing favoritism towards certain manufacturers. And I don't do that. I don't want that to be an impression that anyone gets from, hearing me say certain things on this channel. And so I'm going to be very open and honest with regards to my disclosure with regards to one of the companies that I've been accused of representing in the past, and that's DPA or Danish Professional Microphones. Now, let's start with how I ended up getting connected with them. In summer, and I should say, I'm looking at the date right here, it's August 11th, 2014. I was in New York City on vacation by myself. And amongst other things, which I don't really go to the tourist places, I basically just wandered around, and my vacation was me meeting up with sound people, going to sound shops, and I went to the World Trade Center and hung out with some local people that I knew. And, lived as a real New Yorker there for about a week. And one of the things I did find myself doing is going to the sound shops. And so when I went to Pro Sound, for example, I saw that they had in consignment a Electrosonics venue. And I knew somebody back at home in Atlanta who was interested in trying to find one of those. And I made a call and said, hey, this is a great price. You're going to want to buy it. Connected him up. He bought it. And Pro Sound was like, you can come back anytime you'd like. I also found myself hanging out at Gotham Sound. This is when they were actually on in Manhattan before they had moved. So I would go in, I would hang out for a little bit. I'd, have one or two people ask me a question. I'd start talking sound, and other people would come in to buy something. They would hear me start talking about sound, and then all of a sudden it'd end up being that I'm like, well, I'm going to go off and do something now. And they'd be like, wait a minute, aren't you an employee? No, I'm not an employee. I'm just here on vacation. Well, what are you doing here then? I'm like, I'm hanging out with my people, doing my thing. And that's what I ended up doing. Well, one of the things that I ended up doing while there was having dinner with one of the owners, Peter. And Peter has become a good friend of mine over the years. Now, one of the things I do want to say at this point was that Gotham at that point was in Manhattan, and it was very well located in the middle of the city. So I would, as I was going around to different places, Central Park, or, one of the few touristy things I did was I wanted to pay my respects to the World Trade Center, and I went there. But one of the things I also ended up doing was hanging out at Gotham quite a bit, mainly because it was very centrally located. And when things closed, I didn't want to just go back and hang out with friends or whatever else. Sometimes I had to bridge gaps between time frames. And this one night I was going to be having dinner with Peter. So in my wait for dinner, because I had to wait until the shop had closed up, I started to just look around, fish around, make myself at home, being me. And there was a microphone sitting on their front counter that I had never seen or heard of before. So I did what I do. I went by and grabbed a cable off of their shelf. I grabbed a pair of headphones and I grabbed a Zoom recorder that they had that was a floor model, and connected them all up and started playing with that microphone. And I tell you, it was, I don't want to say love at first sight. It's more like love at first hear. That was the DPA 4017B. I really love that microphone. I still do to this day. It is still to this day my favorite microphone. And I started my love for it then. I didn't yet have it as my favorite microphone, but I knew I loved it a whole lot at the time. And one of the things I started doing is I started to point it at different things. Employees were kind of, felt a little awkward because I'd go over, they'd be on the phone talking to a customer, and I'd just start pointing the microphone at them, then queuing off access. And I was just playing with it, listening to different things. And they were just like, okay, whatever. And, ignored me. And I found myself playing with that microphone quite a bit, and I really, really liked it. Now, fast forward. I was going to be teaching a class at the Union Hall, and that was going to be a class on, I believe it was going to be lav mics. But upon my getting back to Georgia, I called up True Audio and Gotham Sound in Atlanta. I can't remember. Were they in Atlanta at the time? I can't remember. But if not, I might have reached out to various different other companies. Also, but I think they were in Atlanta at the time. I can't be 100% sure on the details, but I did contact them and said, I want to have a representative. I'm changing the class. It's not going to be a live class anymore. It's going to be on boom microphones. I'd been wanting to do that class anyway. And I said, you know what? Now's a great opportunity because it's going to give me a chance to introduce Atlanta to the DPA microphones if they have not yet heard them. And I contacted True in Gotham and I said, I want someone from DPA there. I want to talk to them. I want them to bring other things for me to listen to. And I really want to know more about them because at the time I had little or no experience with DPA other than what I had run into in New York. Not very many people in Atlanta had them. So if anybody. So at this point, they connected me up with someone who decided to come down from the class, and he brought a bunch of things for me to listen to. And I started a relationship with him, asking him questions. I got his phone number, so I would text him questions. I started asking him a lot of different things, and he arranged for me to get a loaner 4017B, mainly to use for the classes I was teaching at the Union Hall. This is about 2 years before I started Sound Speeds. So as time progressed, I was using the microphone more and more in classes, and then they decided to start something called the Masters Club. Now, this is something that you have to be invited to. You cannot contact them and say, hey, man, I'd like to be part of the Masters Club. It's not like that at all. You have no idea who you have to contact, and it's someone I had never met before who reached out to me and asked me if I would like to join. And I did have reservations, let the truth be known. Mainly because I have always been one of those people that even when I was a DJ back in the 90s, people would say, hey man, if I refer you for a job, will you give me $100 referral fee? I said, no. And the reason why is even though I was, a teenager in my early and all the way up through my early 20s in the 90s, I said, look, if you refer me, I want it to be because I'm the best person for the job. I don't want you to refer me because I'm paying a referral fee to you. So I said no. And I would also not pay, I would not give referral fees and I would not get them from anybody. So if I gave a recommendation to someone, I did not accept, they would say, hey man, let me throw you, $50, $100, something like that for the referral. No, I didn't refer you because you were going to give me something and I expected something in return. I referred you because you were the best person for that job. That mentality has stuck with me throughout my entire life. And I don't refer people because I'm going to get something out of it. Not because if I refer a certain mixer, I'll be their boom operator, or because they're going to say, you know what, dude, I'm going to give you something. I don't play those games. I like there to be, even if I'm the last person on earth that's doing it, I like to have that part of the integrity built into me that people can trust. So when I did this boom class and this particular representative came down and started letting me hear a bunch of things, some of these things I was like, that's nothing I'm interested in. Nope, not getting even bother listening to that. Nope, nothing I'd use for film. Nope, nothing I'm interested in. Let me listen to that one. Nothing. I don't like the sound of that one. No. And we went through a whole bunch of different things. And there were two microphones at that point that I dialed in on that I loved. Obviously, the 4017B was one of them. And then the SC 4098. This is before they had the 4097 and before I had heard any of their lavs. And the 4098 being a little bitty tiny plant microphone on a goose arm that had a super cardioid pattern, it was very, very convenient and low profile where you could actually, if you used it just right, it was a very full sounding microphone because it's basically a DPA lav capsule inside of a pretty delicate actually, interference tube that allows you to place it in certain places and really pull out a good fat sound on their voice if you place it right and nice and close. It's going to pick up better than a lav will. So as I had this loaner at the time, the 4017B, they invited me to the Masters Club. I at first was very, very hesitant. I even said in my when they first reached out to me, I said, no, I don't want there to be a question of my integrity. I don't want to represent you. I don't want to have there be any confusion about me referring one of your microphones just because I am supposedly connected with you. I don't want there to ever be that. I'm going to continue to recommend the microphones I feel people are best suited for, and I will recommend others. And of them, DPA, I'll be pointing out the things that I like about DPA microphones if I recommend you, but I don't want to get pressured to to recommend your microphones just because I'm part of a master's club. And they said, oh no, that's not what this is at all. You're already doing some of the things that a master would do, which is sharing your experience and your enthusiasm and love for the product. You're already doing what we basically would expect from a master. And I'm like, so I don't have to do anything. And they said, well, let me actually connect you up with someone. So I spoke with a representative there who does international travel and stuff like that, talking about DPA. And when I spoke to him, I said the same thing. I wanted it to be very open and upfront that I'm not going to show favoritism. I'm not going to play by their strict rules or whatever if they're expecting me to play in a certain way. Just like on YouTube here, I don't do things that would make the algorithm love me. I mean, if you're one of my subscribers, cool. If you happen to come across this video and you're like, who is this guy? Cool, but I'm not going to do things to try to manipulate an algorithm so that way I get more views or to try to whatever. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to play those games. And just like that, I was not going to play certain games with them. And he did tell me, it's because you teach a lot of classes and you would get the microphones into the hands and ears of people that would like to listen to them and maybe even purchase them. I said, that's kind of cool. And part of one of the benefits of being in the Masters Club is that I would have the ability to get on permanent loan a kit of certain microphones that I would be using and that I would like to use and could use on set for different things. And that way, if I was working with the sound mixer who I was like, you should really hear this microphone, I would have one that I could put out and let them hear. And I really like that idea. Also, being part of the Masters Club, it allows me to get insider information, kind of like a non-disclosure agreement, insider information that would give me extra insight and the ability to get information about certain products ahead of time. So I'm usually trusted by manufacturers. And there are many companies that I talk to constantly, and I've never signed a paper or anything like that for them, but I'm not going to disclose. I'm not going to betray their trust by revealing their secrets to anybody. So if you're part of a manufacturer out there and curious about it, ask me about something I'm holding secret. You'll find that I'm not going to tell you. Just like if you entrust me with something, I'm not going to go and blab it all over the place. So I agreed to join the Masters Club after being very clear and being told what basically I would be what benefits I would receive, which is basically that. I mean, I would get the permanent loan kit of whatever if I requested a certain thing to be part of the loaner kit, which was on a year-long reoccurring loan. So every single year it would say, hey, your loan is due. And I would contact them and say, well, I'm still using it. And then when I started Sound Speeds, I started using it also. I'd do location shoots and I think I've done some of the early location shoots I did on Sound Speeds. Actually, many of the videos I've done here on Sound Speeds, I've used a DPA 4017B, or part of the kit was also, they said, you know what, you might also like the 4018C. And I'm like, the low profile version? Yeah, let me send that to me and let me check it out. There were other things in the past that they've sent me that I've taken a look at or listened to and shook my head and said, nope, not interested in this, and sent it right back to them. There have even been microphones they have sent to me telling me, I think you're going to like it. It's this and this. I'm like, well, tell me some more details. And they've said, I'm just going to send it to you. I look at it. I didn't even listen to them. And I'm like, nope, not gonna even do it because it's nothing I would ever use. And I've sent it right back to them. Even though I'm sure that doesn't make them very happy. But that's basically me being me. And so over the years, like for example, when I got this loaner kit, I started to use them in a whole lot in the classes I was teaching. I started to also use them on the sets I was working on. The 4017B, whenever I was working with a mixer that was open to different microphones, it lived almost, all the time on my boom caddy. And whenever I could use it, I would throw it up and say, well, this I think is going to be the best microphone for us, because I love the fact that it's very flat. It's open. I don't like embellishments. I don't like overly sharp or bright, microphones or something like that. Sometimes I do, because of another feature, like the CMIT 5U, for example, the Sheps. I really like the fullness of it, and I like the fact that it's very smooth. It's very, the frequency responses are very, very flat with regards to how it picks up and certain off axes. Before I start talking about the Shep's stuff, let me continue on the DPA. The DPA 4017B, one of the reasons I love it is because similarly, the interference tube is very open. You can go off axis with it. It doesn't start coloring the sound. It just starts to attenuate. Now, you're going to still have detail loss anytime you go off axis with a microphone. It's going to happen. But as soon as you start to go off axis, it more attenuates. Then it doesn't really color the sound that's off axis. It's also, relatively low noise. It's very light also. There's a reason why a DPA microphone is on the Mars Perseverance. And I did a video about that, even though, truth be known, some of the details that I got were not really known at the time, and I did get them wrong in that video, a couple of things. Not very many, but I did get a couple of things wrong, admittedly. But this also allowed me, being a part of the Masters Club, when there were some guys from research and development interested in what DPA could develop next. I was on, I think, Stranger Things at the time, and it was like 3 a.m. I got up and I met up to these guys and talked to them for hours and hours and hours before call time. And we met at this kind of a cool place for breakfast, and we talked about all the different aspects of what we do and what they could potentially introduce that would be cool. Now, over the years, actually, I should stop real quick before I continue. Some of the conversation we had led to the development of the 6060, the 6060 Lav. Now, over the years, I've made other recommendations to them, and they'll take my recommendations and they'll say, okay, cool, thanks for that. But they're not going to necessarily do it just because I'm a Masters Club member, or they'll put it out there and they'll check and see if it's going to be profitable. They're going to check and see how much it would cost them and that kind of thing. And they've told me no quite a few times, and I've said, okay, cool. And I've gone to other manufacturers that I think might be able to make them, and without changing them into a way that's going to make it not worth it anymore. Because obviously there are certain things that we in the film industry like to be a certain way. And if you don't do it that way, they're not going to like it. So you can't just say, well, what if we change this to this, to this, to this, to this? And they would come back to me and say, can we do this? No, it's got to be this way or nothing. And they would say, okay, well, we're not going to be able to do that. I'm like, all right, cool, thanks. And that's when I started pitching. Now, if you are a representative of a certain microphone company and you want some ideas, something that would be profitable, let me know, because there are some ideas I've had, and let the truth be known, I've even thought about launching a few products myself. But yet, before I start going on a tangent away, yet again, let me continue. So I was using and this DPA Masters Club kit that they sent me allowed me to listen to different microphones, to try them out, to A/B test them against other products. So one of the things I did when I started getting it is I started testing it against everything. I did a Lav comparison that I posted in one of the sound forums about comparing the new at the time Slim inside of a BLM 6000 versus an SC 4098. Those are both those are all DPAs, and versus a Cub One, and the sound mixer and utility I was working with at the time got in on that. We plant mic'd them, and we did some tests, and they had differences of opinions than me, but I was not showing favoritism. It's just that everybody's ears are different. The things I like to hear may not be the same things as you like to hear, and the next person, which is one reason why you've always heard me say you need to listen to them. Don't rely on the spec sheet, because spec sheets lie. And even when they don't lie, they're maybe not necessarily accurate, because you got to keep in mind those specs were generated from a prototype or like the master build of it. And by the time microphones go into manufacturing, there's going to be fluctuations, plus or minus 2 or 3 dB tolerances on certain specs. And some might even be completely off, from the thing you're listening to. So you have to listen to them and compare them yourself. That's one of the reasons why many manufacturers say, well, we offer matched pairs, because not every microphone that they make is going to sound like another one of the same model number. So anyway, I did a bunch of different comparisons of different DPA microphones to other microphones to provide information. And then when again I was working with the sound mixer, and I was like, you know what, I think this would be a good opportunity to use one of these things. For example, on Walking Dead, when Negan was eating the spaghetti, with Carl, he was sitting at the table and he happened to be back a little ways and he was looking down quite a bit. I said, you know what? A plant microphone might be nice. So I put a 4018 capsule with an H active cable, I think it was, into an electro transmitter. And that was something that was sitting right there on the table that Nika was eating spaghetti on. On Stranger Things, there was a couple places that I needed to have a good full sounding microphone, but I could not put the one that the mixer normally used. So like season 2, episode 7, for example, there's a picture. And whenever I plant a microphone, I always take a picture for reference later in case we want to match the sound, we want to match the angle, or if someone says, wait a minute, was that cable sticking out this way? And I can say, no, it wasn't. Here, check this out. And that way I can't be accused of anything later. And if I need to match a sound or they go back to do a reshoot, I could send that picture off to the sound team. And that way they can put a microphone exactly the same place, the same way, and it will match. When they were in the bus, when the Demogorgons attacked, I put it in there, and then because they did blocking with the kids while the kids were in school. When the kids came out and they're like, well, I think I should be in a different place. And they were like, all right, well, picture's up. They moved to a different place and we weren't even able to use it. But, there's been other times. I've had the BLM 6000, which is a boundary layer microphone attachment. It's like a little rubber thing that goes with 4060 or like the Slim. And you basically it turns it into a boundary layer microphone and it picks up beautifully in a car. I love it. Admittedly, I don't use that nearly as much as other microphones now, because mainly, and here's the next part of this, I think it was 2020, during the shutdown of 2020, I started doing a lot of reflection on what I was wanting to do and how I was wanting to do it. At the time, I had on loan quite a few pieces of gear from different manufacturers. And I decided I wanted to stop doing that. So I sent back some gear that I had borrowed. And one of the things that was a holdout was the DPA Masters Club kit. Part of it was because it's hard to get it's hard for me to give up, first of all, things that I love. But at the same time, I also had a relationship with DPA a couple years before I even started SoundSpeed. So I kind of said in my mind, I've been very open about this, but then I started getting a couple people, saying, well, you represent them. So I'm like, whoa, hold on a second. I don't represent them. Now might be a time that I need to think about this. So I contacted DPA and I said, I'm going to be returning your Masters Club kit. They're like, no, don't do that. We love what you're doing. Not just with the classes you're teaching in person, but also on SoundSpeed. So I'm like, yes, I appreciate that. But I am not going to be responsible for loaned gear anymore. I'm not going to do it's a blanket policy across the board, personal and professional. I'm not going to manage anyone else's gear anymore. If I have something, it's going to be something that I own. So if you like what I do enough and you want to gift me something, that's fine. I'll still disclose that in my videos, because there have been manufacturers in the past that say, hey, you know what? If it gets it out there and you can use it and it will be seen on camera, or if someone says to you, what do you use? And I'll say, well, I like this. So this is what I use. Granted, I don't use everything, and nor do things that I'm gifted for certain purposes do I end up using for the purpose they would like, because it doesn't necessarily work for me that way. That's one of the reasons why the 4018, I may have used the 4018C for a couple of not podcasts. I actually did use it for one of the SoundSpeeds podcasts. I think I did it in one episode. But I've also used it for a couple of live streams because it was very small and it was open. And I also wanted to hear how it would sound in that environment. So that way I would know if I should recommend it. When I got the 4018C, I sent it to Mike Delgadio at one point for him to check it out. He did a video that was called like $1,300 for that, or something along those that nature. And so one of the things I've done over the years, I've loaned this gear out to friends or people that I would want to share it with and let them get their thoughts and opinions on it. But I decided that needed to come to an end. So I did in 2021, I reached out to DPA and I told them that I was returning their Masters Club kit. They told me they didn't want me to do that, and I told them it's not an option. This is something that's a personal policy. It's something that I'm going to be doing because I want to be able to be leveling the playing field, showing no favorites, I don't want there to be any questions about me and my integrity. So at that point, I said, I'm sending it back to you. And again, that's just the way I am. And so I sent it back to them. And I said, I do want to point out, I'm not severing ties with you guys. I still love your products. I'm still going to recommend them when it's appropriate and that kind of thing. But that is basically it. That brings me up to now. DPA has not, as of the time of this video, decided to send me anything else to keep on, or I should say gift me anything. And as you know, I still love the 4017B. The 4098 was one of those microphones that's the short gooseneck. It still serves a great purpose. It is not a microphone that I usually find myself using, because right now there's a lot of miniatures and stuff like that. The mixers I've been working with for the past few months at least. Mixer has different microphones, and I'm like, oh wow, this is working great. It's mainly it's other alternatives to it. But whenever a 4098 can be thrown in there, and I think it's going to be the right thing for it, I do use it. I also very much love the 6060. It is still my favorite lav mic. And some people are like, well, I prefer the sound of the Sanken cost 11. That's fine. That's fine. To me, it's too sharp. To me, it's got too much. It's too bright. I mean, I understand you put it underneath clothing and it's going to punch through it pretty well. That's fine. Anyway, that is my relationship in short with DPA. I still love their products. I still will absolutely recommend them when it's the right thing for the person. But again, I am, and I'm still part of the Masters Club member. I just got my new card, which is a membership card they send you. I just got that this last couple weeks ago, I believe. And so I am a card-carrying Masters Club member. But does that mean that just because I'm on their website as a Masters Club member, does that mean I'm going to show them any favoritism? No. It just means that I love their products. I have no problem recommending them. And I will absolutely continue to do that regardless of whether or not they send me anything or show me any favoritism in the future. I still love their products. Even if they wanted to kick me out of the Masters Club program, hey, guess what? I still love your mics. Anyway, thanks for watching this episode of SoundSpeeds, and be sure to tune in the future for more full disclosures, education, and sound advice. Have a question you'd like answered or want to add something? Be sure to write it in the comment section down below. You can also make a suggestion for future topics of discussion. Again, comment section down below, or you can email me at soundspeeds@yahoo.com. Be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss out on future sound advice.